if I have seen any of the major downsides or major mistakes in how people pitch to me in an era where everybody can just send you an email or send, I'm sure I'm one of 10 million emails that are being sent out. People aren't pitching stories, they aren't pitching emotional connections, they're pitching a thing, a little idea, one snippet, and I think that those are the things, not only do I delete them immediately, I immediately have a complete disregard, a dislike, and almost hatred for the person who has done that to my email mailbox. To me, people will pitch stories to me around a statistic. 1 in 5 kids is in poverty. You know, no one ever has their heart ripped out from them because of a statistic. You know, so to me, we sit around and try to think of, well, how can that statistic be a story? So if 1 in 5 kids is in poverty, or if the average age of a kid in a homeless shelter is 9, the way to do that story is go to 4 homeless shelters and find a 9-year-old, right? And tell the stories. Like, that will kill you. I can tell you already, and I came up with that idea 8 seconds ago, that will kill you. That will be the most emotional heart, and everybody like, oh my God, did you see that? 1 in 5 kids in poverty, you do the story of the people who close their doors because they have no more food, right? So it's sort of like, it's not the people who got into the food bank, it's the ones that didn't, right? All those people at the end of the day who are still in line, and there's no more food. 60 Minutes actually did a very similar story like that when it came to medical care. There was a clinic, people would fly in, and they did the story on the first person outside the door when they said, we can't take anybody else. That person's story, who'd waited, by the way, months and months and months for these doctors who would fly in. I mean, kills you. And I think the problem today is that we're not pitched, you know, we're pitched that stat, but not pitched the, oh my God, this is the person. A lot of that is what our job is. But to me, if someone wants to be helpful, they say, you know, I can introduce you to 4 people who can introduce you to a bunch of great people who'd be whatever. So the stories that I want to tell are just stories that rip your heart out. And then for me, it's about camping out with them and understanding the nuance, because sometimes what's pitched isn't really the great story. You know, what's pitched is not, here's a little 9-year-old kid who hasn't eaten in 2 days. It's a great example. Let me use a real one because I'm going to make that one up. A real example. I did a story in the wake of Hurricane Katrina in Pearlington, Mississippi. Family had lost everything, devastation, classic, you know. And then one day they gave me a tour of their FEMA trailer. You know, it's not tiny, messy, whatever. And then at one point the little girl said, I said to her, so where do you sleep? Because I'm counting the beds. Like, where do you sleep? And she opens up a cabinet in the kitchen. And she slept on a shelf in the kitchen. And you're like, no, seriously. I was like, no, I meant, where do you sleep? She's like, I sleep here. And that made us shift. Our entire story became this little, at the time she was 6-year-old girl sleeps on a couch. Like, that tells you everything that's wrong with the rescue efforts and the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Like, so it's those moments you're looking for versus widespread destruction in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. Pearlington was also hit. You know, that's a story from 35,000 feet. You want to be, like, in it. So far, I wouldn't say it's helped me uncover stories, although people pitch stories to me all the time on social media. I think what it's about, for me, is really engaging in conversation. And part of that's because I do documentaries, right? So I really do 8 a year, and they take a year to produce. So we have to kind of look out another year maybe before I would be able to give you better information on that. What social media has done for me is to engage people in a conversation that either before our documentary airs or after our documentary airs, I want to have with people who are interested, and I want to encourage them to watch what we're working on. And then after that, I want to encourage them to keep having a conversation, because if I've spent a year on a doc, I care about it, I'm interested. So I think ultimately, the social media where people are clearly pitching something just falls flat. I think when we, as a show, do that also. You know, when we say, listen, I want you to watch, I think everyone gets it, that's a sales job. I think people understand when someone says to me, you know, I'm 2,000 followers away from, you know, that it does not encourage you. Why'd you follow that person? The best way to have connection is to be relevant, to be personal, to be in a conversation, to have someone say, the most time I get most followers was when my best friend who lives in New Orleans and I have these conversations over Twitter, and we start roping in. We did one with Pam Greer the other day talking about grits. I mean, literally, it has nothing to do with anything. And we're having this long conversation about, what's the best way to eat grits. I personally hate grits. So, they're talking about, I'm saying that I would still come to their dinner but not have the grits. And we, you could see the number of people who were engaged in that conversation because you weren't selling them something. What they were buying, I think, was sort of like, I like that. I like that perspective. I like that person. I want to know what she's doing next. I want to follow her because I want to be interested in her other conversations because this one's kind of weird and interesting. That's really what I think you can do with social media. But if you put up a, for sale sign, no one's going to come to that. I don't think.